Welcome back to Counting the Cost, your weekly business stop here on Al Jazeera. I'm Kamal Santamaria. As the financial crisis hit almost every corner of the world, some countries seem to have escaped relatively unscathed. Egypt is one of those rare cases. It's got a strong domestic policy and, perhaps cleverly in light of this crisis, has limited integration with world markets. The end result, Egypt kept on growing, albeit at a reduced pace. Have a look at these numbers. The overall economy, first of all, in Egypt, it grew by 4.7% in the last financial year, which ended in June. That is more than the 4% the IMF had predicted, but far less, as you can see, than the 7.2% that Egypt enjoyed the previous year. Unemployment up by less than 0.5% in the last year. Sounds kind of small, but overall unemployment is 9%, so it's actually a pretty decent chunk. And the economic stimulus, well, following the lead of other countries, Cairo pumped $2.71 billion into infrastructure projects, hoping to kickstart the economy and create some jobs for those 9% unemployed. So all up, the Egyptian economy is pretty good. Unemployment is being addressed, but there has been an absolute standout sector in Egypt, and that has been real estate. A little ironic, perhaps, given the subprime mortgage crisis was what sparked all this in the first place. But Egyptian real estate's done really well, continuing to grow and making up 8.6% of the country's entire growth. So what's next, and what kind of impact will it continue to have on its economy? Jamal Al-Shail in Cairo has more on that.
Dr. Sharif Fawzi and his wife are about to purchase a holiday home. It's something they've been saving for years. And despite the global economic downturn, there has never been a better time to buy. Real estate companies across Egypt have been going into overdrive in recent months as the country's property market continues to grow. At a time where the US and other developed countries are making it more difficult to borrow money to purchase homes, Egypt seems to be doing the opposite. The reasons for all this? Experts say the cash-based nature of the country's economy means there are more people capable of affording a down payment for a house. The mortgage culture in Egypt is virtually non-existent. Instead, banks lend to multinational development companies who build huge housing projects. They, in turn, sell property at a profit to customers via interest-free installments.
When the recession hit other countries, we started looking into ways to make it easier for people to buy. For example, we halved the percentage required for a down payment.
And it seems that the approach being used by the real estate companies is working.
They made it very easy for us to buy. The down payment was reduced and now the installments can be paid over a longer period of time. This helped us a lot.
On the outskirts of Cairo, vast areas of land, once desert, are now being converted into huge residential areas. Builders working around the clock. Here, there are no signs of an economic slowdown, let alone a recession. There are literally hundreds of thousands of housing units like these being built across Cairo and Egypt as a whole. Where projects are being completed, new developments swiftly follow. A sign that not only has Egypt's housing market survived the global economic crisis, moreover, it continues to grow and at a very fast pace. This housing complex was completed just months ago. Already it is fully inhabited by hundreds of families. The demand was so much so that the company behind the development decided to undergo 3 similar projects. But while some analysts warn that such a housing boom will be difficult to sustain, the country's top realtors are confident the housing market will grow from strength to strength.
We need more than 400,000 to 500,000 units per year just for the sake of population growing. And I don't think that the market is providing more than 150 or 200,000 units in all the segments. So I think we have a need and the need will continue.
But away from the number crunching and economic forecasts, in a global economy still struggling to pick up, these new homeowners are the lucky ones. But there are still thousands of people waiting to climb the property ladder. And with banks looking for new ways to make that happen, the ball for now seems to be firmly in their court. Jamal Al-Shail for Counting the Cost, Cairo.
All right, let's discuss this further now with Majdi Sobhi. He is an economic analyst at the Al-Ahram Center for Political and Strategic Studies in Cairo. Thank you for your time, sir. So the property market's looking very good in Egypt at the moment and pretty terrible everywhere else in the world. Why has Egypt remained so strong?
So because, you know, we have this kind of additional amount of money which injected in the economy from the budget, and you have a secure enough financial sector. So there is no panic in Egypt actually with this kind of actions. And if you add to this the monetary and financial policies, expansionary monetary and financial policies, I think this give a kind of secure enough to the Egyptian economy and the Egyptian market, of course.
There doesn't need to be more stimulus. There was about $2.7 billion stimulus put into the economy. You don't think there needs to be another hit?
No, I think we have a room actually to expand this year, even compared to the last year. If the worst of the crisis is gone, international crisis is gone, then you have maybe a much securer situation in this year, especially with the remittances from abroad. I think it will be more than the last year. The Suez Canal may be better than the last year. So the main branches of the economy will going to be better, I think.
Right, you mentioned the Suez Canal. I was going to ask you about that. Suez Canal and tourism, two very big money earners for Egypt. They are the sectors that have been hit by the downturn. Do you see them improving at the moment?
I think so, especially actually they don't hit much. If you take into consideration that the tourism during the first half of this year decreased by 8.5% only, compared to expectations that it's going to be 20% or even more, then you are a better situation than you expected.
So we've looked at a lot of positives here of the economy. Factors, though, if you look at the numbers, growth is going down quite dramatically still, 7.2%. It was 4.7% this year, scheduled to go down to 3.9 or predicted to go down to 3.9. That fall has to be arrested somehow.
I think the government expectations is more than 5% this year, and I think it is the better expectations actually compared to international expectations. If you have 4.7 during the worst of the international crisis, definitely you are going to achieve better with the weather of the crisis. So I think more than 5% is secure enough to say that we will not have this kind of slowdown in economic growth.
Majdi Sobhi from the Al-Ahram Center in Cairo. Thank you for your time. And from Egypt to Kazakhstan, not a place you hear a lot about economically speaking, but pretty much in the same boat as so many other countries, really taken a battering from this global crisis, including a big drop in demand for one of its biggest exports, oil. Now, Kazakhstan's got enormous oil and gas reserves, which made it pretty rich in the years following independence from the Soviet Union and resulted in something of a boom. Now, though, as Robin Forrestier Walker's been finding out in these recession-hit days, the benefits of the bonanza aren't trickling down.
Energy and influence are the drivers of power in Kazakhstan. The host of this energy forum, business mogul Timur Kulibayev, just so happens to be the president's son-in-law. Multinationals attracted to the country's major reserves of oil and even gas and uranium must make the right friends for a share of the riches. As part of the USSR, Kazakhstan's hydrocarbons were exploited by the Soviet Union. Since independence, Kazakhstan has increasingly taken a stake in the profits, but it has always been dependent on international expertise.
Companies that have invested here have been able not merely to develop the oil on a risk and reward basis, but they've been able to repatriate profits and at the same time making an awful lot of money for the Kazakh government.
And this, the result of all that oil wealth, a new capital built in the middle of the steppe with extraordinary structures like this Norman Foster design pyramid. This is Kazakhstan's way of saying, we made it.
And the country does have plenty to shout about. Its giant offshore Caspian oil field, Kashagan, due online in 2012, could eventually supply 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, the equivalent of around 10% of Europe's daily demand. Pipelines from Kazakhstan supply the Chinese and Russians, and the Europeans want Caspian supplies of gas that would alleviate their dependency on Russia. But the party's over for now. Kazakhstan's economy took a dive even before the global recession. While oil prices soared, the country went on a spending spree, but its banking and building sectors collapsed when the free credit dried up.
Everyone who's managing to earn money now is paying off their debt. Everyone is in debt. There's no one who isn't in debt. I'm a former entrepreneur myself. Now I'm a taxi driver, trying to earn something to bring money home.
The crisis has taken the shine out of the capital. Critics question whether the oil money the government put aside for a rainy day will be enough to solve all its problems. Robin Forestier-Walker for Al Jazeera, Astana.
And finally to Mexico, where the government says the country is beginning to emerge from recession, but officials caution the recovery will be slow. And perhaps slower still for the millions of Mexicans who, in recent months, have fallen into poverty as employment levels hit a new low. Now, President Felipe Calderón says he's instituting policies which will help the poorest in Mexican society. But as Frank Contreras reports, it's unlikely those measures will actually bring relief to those most in need.
Lupita Vázquez Romero and her family are slipping further and further into poverty. 5 months ago, her husband abandoned her and their 3 children. She's taken a job at a local factory that pays $52 a week. That's 6 days' work at 10 hours each day. 60 hours a week leaves her little time to be with her children, and the job barely pays for the family's basic needs: food, electricity, and school supplies. She fears things will only get worse.
Right now I have to pay our electric bill and also the doctor when my children get sick. Those are costs I can't plan for, and my husband doesn't help us at all. It's really difficult for me.
A newly released government report shows that poverty in Mexico is rising. From 2006 to 2008, it grew more than 4%. That means nearly 54 million Mexicans are now in the ranks of the poor. Extreme poverty is also growing. Each day, some 20 million Mexicans are not getting proper nutrition. The government says they earn less than $60 a month. Mexico's president, Felipe Calderón, who's made fighting drug trafficking his top priority, now says it's time to do something about poverty. He recently inaugurated what the government is calling its first ever sustainable rural city. With affordable housing, basic services, schools, and health clinics, Calderón says sustainable cities are designed to prevent people from falling into extreme poverty. The United Nations says it could become a world model. But in order to pay for his anti-poverty programs, Calderón says he'll have to raise taxes on key items such as foods and medicines. This United Nations development expert says these measures have to be immediately enacted to stem an already exacerbating social crisis.
Not of a social unrest, but the problem with future generations, that we're going to have some effects on the nutrition and the general health of children in the future.
Inside the Congress, the president now faces a firestorm of controversy for his plan to increase taxes, which opposition parties say will only make things harder for the poor. Lupita Vázquez Romero has more basic things on her mind. Lately, the city government has been cutting water to the poorest parts of the capital. That makes it even more difficult for her to take care of her children's needs.
We just have to keep on struggling. If we don't, we could end up in the streets.
Vázquez knows, for her sake and for her children, that's one option she just can't afford. Frank Contreras, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
And that is just about it for this week, but as ever, we're looking for your opinions. Last time our show focused on green economies, and we wanted to know if you thought they were sustainable or not. Lots of responses to that. This week, with our earlier focus on China, do you think the People's Republic can continue its incredible economic march? Head to aljazeera.net/English, click on your views on the left-hand side of the page to leave your comments. And of course, you can check in on all the latest business news on that same site at aljazeera.net/English. That is it from Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santa Maria from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.